Right. So before everyone joins in, I wanted to share a few ideas about how you can do your travel pages. So far, we've just been making little bits of the travel topics in isolation. So we'll do one monument and then one emblem and something like that. But all of that can be tied together. The composition can become like one whole cohesive um, idea so that the page looks in itself looks like an illustration. So I have some illustrations from previous classes that I've done, which I'd like to show you first, because the page that we are going to complete right now, we just have one completed image, that is the post box, and then we have this bus that has been drawn, and then we are going to draw that the phone booth. But we also should do some lettering and even other elements that can fill up this whole page. So I'm sure you're wondering what all is possible, what all can we fill this with. So let's look at something like this that we started. So this is from the Tuesday class, where you put in lettering over some washes of color. So then I have pulled out some color onto which I have lettering. So this almost acts like an overlap from one design to another. And this can connect your design and make it more, I guess, more like an illustration. Then we have a whole bunch of illustrations that we've done from almost 5 years ago. So this one has a little map, a little bit of food, flag, and something about the place. So we don't make, or we try to make things that can be connected in some form or another. When these were painted, obviously, if you remove the water here, you can see that this statue is pretty disconnected from these buildings, but there was some thought to how all of this can be tied up together. Here we have distinctly separate elements which get tied up because of the text running from one to the other land. Here is a smaller image, but again, there are things that tie together. This is a very basic composition, but little bits of the blue are shown going into becoming this evil eye artifact. So, a composition like that can come up very organically as well. After you have made two, three things, you can start seeing some composition and then put everything together. You don't have to always have in mind that I'm going to draw one building, one bird, two pieces of food, and a scarf. It doesn't work like that. You will probably do this, but what I'm trying to say is, if you want a page, make a page like that, maybe you should consider not making the building right in the center so that you don't occupy everybody else's space. So you look at your page as little bits that you can make different items in. And also watch out for small motifs like this. Now, I think this is just a regular clover, but Ireland is known for a four-leaf clover. I have no idea why I have made three-leafed clovers. There must be some thought behind it. Here there is no text. So this maybe is a sample of when you don't have text or when you don't put things together, how this blank space almost calls out for attention. This is again a very basic format, one, two, three, little bit of lettering, and that's it. And something like that. It is one, two, three, four, but the lettering then sticks everything together. Some of these have turned out really good. These were really literally one of the first few that I made when I started the travel batch. This must be from like uh, 2018 or something. And this was for a postcards like design. So when you are traveling, you don't always have to make a whole page. We can always just make one little element, make it like a postcard, and in fact, photocopy it onto A4 size card sheets in twos and just send it out to people you know. And I do this often when I have traveled and come back home. I send it back, send it to the people that I have visited. So something from where I visited, I send it back as just a thanks. In each of them, you'll see I've changed the lettering just a little bit. When I want to write a very small amount, I make the lettering bigger and a little more ornate. When I want to write a lot of stuff, it becomes very tiny, and it is more efficient to make all lettering in all caps if you need to save space. Now these pages turned out really good. So you've seen how in the beginning I did just a little bit here and there. This is made over 2 weeks of class. I'll look for this if you want. But see how if you just isolate a few elements, we have just the food. But there's a little bit of texture on the board of the food. And this texture was made with color pencils on top of watercolor. So matching or mixing two medium. Then the building was made separately and this part was made separately. These are stickers. So these were made and stuck to the page. So this instantly changes the look of the page as well. And this was last year in April, almost the same time. And this as well is a sticker. So if I remove this and you see no text and none of these or this, it looks like the page that we are making right now. Then we have this beautiful page on Bhutan. So this is the hero element and everything else is just the peripheral interest elements. Maybe a basket you see in a market, food you see in a market, something that is just a symbol from the flag. I think this is the symbol on their flag. And then of course you have these flags which are very much a part of that region. Now when you look at this one, this was done in the kids class, so obviously I could not make it too complicated, but you can now imagine where would you want to put text and how would you want to embellish it further. Main element and everything else is a smaller element which is an embellishment. The map in fact can always come later because that is static. You will never be at a location where you will see the map and have to draw it from that. This you might, and this you might. Animal, unlikely. So this you might do on site and these you might do later, and of course the lettering you can do later. Here is such a simplistic illustration of a church. It almost looks like a cartoon church, but there is a church like that in Anguilla. So this was made really fast. And then I made this just for myself because I was visiting Vancouver last year. And I wanted to make a list of the items that I wanted to see. So we do this very often before we go to a place or even identify a place you want to go to, you will do a little bit of research. If you do it a little in advance, you can create your own itinerary. And I also made a map in which I identified where we were staying and then where all these different places were so that I could figure out how to visit it. Okay, so hopefully I'm giving you a lot of ideas for these travel pages. Now, for this one, like I said, I don't have a plan right now, but we will take each element as we go and we will start filling in the details as and when. Now, Seher, I'm going to share images that the reference images that we use for this with you because you won't have those.
All right, all right.
Just give me a second.
Sure, sure, sure.
Right. Okay, so here we have the phone booth. And oh, sorry. So this again is fairly easy to make. The problem with these often comes down to proportions. And if you really want to make it very proportionate, my strategy is just to break everything down into simple shapes like squares, circles, and triangles. So in this case, I'm starting a square from the bottom just to get a sense of the height and width ratio. So this is 2 squares tall. And the last square is not really visible, but I'm going to change the color. So if we look at these squares, you will notice that the top part is just a little more than half of these squares. So we can make a rectangle that is about 2.5 squares tall. That is, it is 2.5 times longer than it is wide, and make our illustration in that. The rest also, the lines give us some indication of where all the other lines can come. So this is just like a regular grid. It works very well for basic shapes, and from here, once you are comfortable with this, you can start making other shapes as well. Now in this case again, I want you to notice a few things. With every square that we have made, you can divide each of them further into regular, sorry, I don't know why no color is visible on this. It's just crazy. Sorry, this one is visible. Yeah, so if when I make a square and I want to find out where the proportions are for everything else, or where the placement is for everything else, my strategy is just to continue to divide this into quarter and eighths and so on and so forth. So it gives me a smaller and smaller fraction of the area to work with. So when I'm at this point and I want to make uh, the windows, I know where exactly to begin my window, but it's not at 1/4 from the top, it's probably 1/8 from the top of the second square, like that. So I will give you directions for that, you don't have to worry about it. But just if you follow my lead, I'm hoping that we can do a good job of this. Okay, so now that you've seen all the different pictures, we can think about two ways of drawing this phone booth. Either we can draw it in isolation like this, or we can make it in such a way that it is overlapped by the bus. It seems a little crazy because it would feel like the bus should be in the background and the phone booth should be in the front. Maybe the bus can be overlapped by the phone booth. But this is where, as artists, you can have fun, where photographers just will constantly rue the fact that they can't take such liberties without Photoshop. So let's make a square from the bottom up. So let it go through this bus. I'm just assuming everybody's made the bus at the same place. I know, Siley, you've just gone and made the photo phone booth also. So maybe you can just observe. So I'm making a square that's about the length of the front of my finger, the first two parts of my finger. So that's about 2 inches or so. Because now that we have made those squares, we know how tall our phone booth has to be. So I've made one square like this.
I think the first class that we did, you said we'll open the door of the phone booth and write something inside, like a sticker.
Yes.
So I made it like that.
Oh,
So maybe
lovely.
illustrate it that way.
Oh,
Like
how cute
write
is
something.
that? Very nice. Let's see one
Yeah.
second. So you can open the door.
Yeah.
That is so cute. That is very fun. Okay, we can make the illustration and we'll also make another, if you
Yeah.
want to, another door on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good
Just say.
idea. All right, so two squares and now the third square up. Now, when you make these shapes, this is the point where you can change anything you want to. So, if you feel that if I cut this over here at about half, is it not fitting in the right place? Is it too low? Is it too high? Or is it too narrow, too fat? This is the point where you can change it. So if you want it any bigger or any higher, like I think I can make it a little higher, then I'm just going to change all my lines. And don't worry, I will erase the lines so you are not confused. I don't even bother erasing many of these lines, but that's because I know what I'm up to. So I've just quickly shifted the bottom of my square and that gives me better positioning. So do not hesitate to change your guidelines from the beginning. Instead of waiting till much of your drawing is done and then thinking, oh, let me just restart. The whole idea of making that grid helps us to visualize these very things. And this is very normal. Most artists do the visualizing way before they start the drawing. The rest of this now is fairly simple. So at the level where the first two boxes join, at this point will be the booth entirely. Above that will be just a little bit above that will be where you will write, no, this is the frame of the door. And then you go halfway up from this new point to the halfway mark of the square. This is where we will write the word telephone on a little white section. Make two thin lines above that. Then make two vertical lines above that. So you've come very close now to the half point of the third square. And from below that half point till a little above that half point, you will make an arc. This is going to be how our phone booth is going to look. So when seeing it flat in 3D without any of those frames and all, this will look a little wider than it should look. But have faith in the grid. If you see it a certain way in the grid, that is how it is. Your eye is not playing tricks on you, your brain is playing tricks on you if you see anything different. Okay, now let's divide this in half, but don't draw a full line, just draw a broken line like that. And then divide each section into quarters. So you have 3 lines breaking the horizontal space into 4 parts. Now all we need to do is make the inside of the door from, so this is the top of the second square. This is level 0, 1 and 2. This is the first square, second square. So for the second square, we will divide this in half, quarters and eighth. And at this point, you will get the top of the window space in the door at 1/8 the space from the top. And below, divide this into half, into quarters, and just a small space above 1/4 of the way up is the end of the window part. Now we will make a frame around this. Is there a frame? No, there's no line. There's just a line, frame coming from the sides and the top. I'd better see the original picture now. Okay, yeah, so now we have this coming all the way down like that. I think this is where you would have the hinge. This is the frame of the entire phone booth. Now when we want to make lines on this, we have made everything else fairly casual and fairly light, so you don't want to make the lines too firm. Definitely do not be tempted to use a scale. All the lines on the corners we are going to be rounded off like that, because otherwise it looks very, very artificial. You will have rounded corners along these edges, along this edge. So very few places you will have lines crossing each other like so, except maybe within the frame. Nonetheless, our lines need to be very simplistic. Now please do not draw these, the frame, or I think what are these things called, inside the window right now, and definitely do not draw them with lines crossing over. I'm going to show you how to do this. So let's start from the top. It is very possible that when you're drawing this long line, that line is going to wobble a little bit, but that's perfectly okay. Don't worry about that. So let's start off with the top. Now this top is the entire outline, and then inside that we are going to make these double line things. So look at the line from both sides, and remember that the pen can correct the lines that you've made. So in my case, I can see that my curve is a certain way on the left, and then on the right it's completely different. So I'm going to change the curve so that it matches on both sides. I know curves are really difficult to negotiate, and those of you who are aware of that pencil yoga that I keep telling you to do, this is the place where it comes in handy. Now I'm drawing the internal design. That's just 2 parallel lines on top, and they come down and they come 2 parallel straight lines towards the bottom. And this is going to be that little molded edge for the top. After this, we will have a little bit of a fringe edge for that top itself, from where a little inside you will have a vertical line coming downwards. Now when you're drawing this, just a tip, Please don't hold your book like that and draw the lines, because very often if you are not looking at the illustration, your lines will be going towards the northeast of the page. So keep your book straight. If you want, keep it at an angle like that so your hand is comfortable, but look at your illustration straight when you're drawing these lines. Now here again, we will draw the bottom part and make the sides at the same place. On my left, the side wall is a little closer. On the right, it was a little further, so I'm going to bring that in. Now this part, you can turn your book sideways. Once you've drawn the line in pencil and you're sure that that line is straight, you can use your faith to draw this line. And let it wobble, that's fine. It should look like a handmade illustration. Okay, is everyone with me? Alright, so on the bottom, don't again join it straight. But this, since there's just one side left, just make a little turn inward like that. This shows that the corners are rounded. This particular feature you will find in a lot of street furniture, because corners tend to be very difficult for people. They kind of round every corner space they get just to avoid injuries and also to avoid damage. I guess this is just part of street furniture design. Now take this line straight up, parallel, go all the way to the top. Further, closer to the top line, turn around and then bring it all the way to the bottom, keeping the distance on the far side the same as the near side. Here there's a proper design which I completely did not see, so I'm going to ignore it. If I didn't see it, it does not exist. And then we can make the another line in the middle of all of this, which is going to be the hinge of the door and also where the door is going to open. And that is a little away from the frame of those glass panes. So halfway between the panes of the glass and this embellishment that we made on the edge, we will make one line that goes right from the bottom around the same distance between these two spaces and comes right back on the other side, and this is going to become our door frame. It's going to remain a little away from these edges, and I'll show you how. So ensure that this door frame is the same distance away from both sides, more or less. And this becomes the door. So you complete the rectangle at the bottom and then bring the other side to this side. I know this doesn't seem like too much, but instead of making one flat line here, if you make 2 or 3 lines, it automatically shows a separation. Draw the hinges here, just a little embellishment that I like to put in for authenticity. This is for the keen eye. And on the other side, so we have an outside line, 2 lines on the inside, and on the left of that we will draw a handle, which is just going to be a shape like this, maybe an oval around it, behind it like this, so that it looks like a little handle. And now we will address this frame. So when drawing frames, I have seen very typically people making vertical and horizontal lines and being done with it, but I absolutely hate that. So at this stage now, everything has shifted a little bit. From some places your lines are closer, some places they're further away, and we don't really need any more of these any of these guidelines anymore. So you get rid of them and make new guidelines for the window panes. The bottom is about this high. I know that because I put the hinge in a certain place. Just above that would be the bottom. And then we draw a line on the right and left about the same distance away, and the top same as the right and left. But the bottom part, you have a very big gap from the foot of the door. Then we will divide it vertically into, this vertically we will make 3 lines to divide the space into 3 equal parts. And horizontally we have to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is very easy to do if you do it this way. Divide the space into half first. So put your finger at some point where you think if you draw the line, you will cut this in half. Putting that finger is important because if you put it here and you imagine the line drawn, or even if you keep a pencil there, you can see if the distance on the top and bottom is equal. Change your finger, change the position of the pencil, and you can start seeing the spaces better. Once you have done this, you can visually divide the 2 parts into 3 equal parts, and we will get our windows. That's it. It's easy enough to do. And for this now, I'm going to ask you to do the tough thing, which will be, first, go all around this rectangle, all around. Leave a little gap and go all around this rectangle. And then go around the insides of all these panes. It is a pain to make window panes. I know it because I must have made like 3,000 window panes for the illustration of the Mysore Hotel Padmini. I will never forget. I still get nightmares when I think about those window panes, but it is so worth it. You just need to take care that your lines come literally one below the other, and that is not impossible really. It might take a little longer, but in the long run, you will be so much happier for the hard work you put in. Somehow, lines crossing over, I find rather ugly. I don't like to do that in window panes. I don't like to do it in cross-hatching textures, maybe, but preferably not. Baskets, yeah, I've seen quite a few ugly texture places of lines crossing over. And that's it, that is our booth. So now if you want to make that doorway like Siley has made, you can trace this out and make a door which you can hinge with just pasting over here. Okay, is everyone with me? Now let's try writing telephone. This is going to be a really, really tiny lettering. So we have to make, before we make the frame for telephone, let's just write telephone. The letter P comes right in the middle because we have TELE on the left and HONE on the right. So put P in the center, knowing that we have to make a frame around it, make it a smaller P. Then make the vertical of the ELE at equal distances so that you can make the letters, and this will define how much space we need for the T and the rest of the letters. And once you've written this, see that you get enough space to make a frame around it. Again, remember that this is only pencil, so it's just a guideline. Using a 03 or a 02 or even a 01, you can make this text. I'm just going to keep the camera a little differently so that you might be able to see how the text is done. Otherwise, the letters get blurred. And making them tinier. So they'll come a little closer. Make one line, single line on either side of the lettering. Oh, that's so painful. And then a second frame around it. Now there is an insignia on top over here, and that too can be made with just a few lines like that. Make 5 dot-like or circle-like shapes at the bottom, at this part. Above the center circle, make another one. I'm not completing these for a reason because I want to show them as half shadowed, etched or sculptural in nature. A V shape above that, some kind of a twirly pattern on the side, just part of the twirls visible, and then you can make almost like a cupcake like design, which I think is the crown or something. And end the bottom with a double line. So again, over here we don't really have to do much more detail than this. Okay, now the other elements that we can put over here, let's think about that. We have the Union Jack that can be splashed around like this. We can have more of the sky coming here. We could have a horizon line which has some elements of the London skyline that can be drawn in silhouette. We can write London somewhere here. We can also write things like phone booth or double-decker bus just for time pass. You can also write the history of the post in London because of this, or that lovely thing that someone had shared about the different insignias for the different eras in in postal design. So let's start painting this first, the bus and the phone booth. Both of them are exactly the same red. So you can have this red just literally bleed into the bus. The bus, of course, will have certain points of highlight, so we will draw those, and some places it will have more shadows than everything else. So let's first begin with making some shadows within the bus. Now using a medium sized brush, which is a number 4 to 6, I'm using a number 6. I'm making a gray mix with black, cobalt blue and burnt umber. So this is a gray shade that I'll get. A note to those of you who are not familiar with watercolor painting, whenever you are mixing colors, my strategy is to keep the pure color somewhere on the palette, and on its edge make the color mix instead of adding the color to the to make a big puddle. This is burnt umber, so I'm adding burnt umber, cobalt blue, that's this one, and black, and what I get is a certain shade of gray, which sometimes can look brownish, and if I add more blue it looks a little bluish, and the black just brings all of that down and neutralizes it. Now you might wonder why you need to make another gray when you could just use black and be done with it. So I find that black is just a very simple color, not very complicated, so it does not give you enough depth in your pictures. So I'm going to take a very little bit of this gray, I've taken it to the side, watered it down a little bit. By watering it down, I don't mean that I add more water, I just take very little amounts of that in my brush. And with that, I'm first going to make a wash on the windows like this. That way my windows look a little transparent and yet not quite. So just one stroke is usually enough. Oh, I haven't erased my guidelines. Even at the bottom. And even over here. So when you're applying this paint, don't apply it like crayons or color pencils. Just put a slash through. That usually suffices. There is also a little bit of yellow there from the light within, which after you have made the gray, you can make it with a lighter color, like maybe a little bit of gamboge. That's this warm yellow color. And just splash it again into that section. It does not have to sit fully over there. A little light somewhere, a little dark somewhere, it won't matter. I want you to see how untidily it has been painted. There's just a slash of color there. This versus taking a yellow like this and carefully painting the windows. No, don't do that. The red we are using is just our plain scarlet. You can't get better than that. So you might need a lot of scarlet for this. So hydrate the scarlet and pull it out on your palette. I'm just going to add to this itself because the scarlet is going to dominate the orange, so I don't have to bother about it. By the way, here's another thing. You don't really need to clean your palette every time if you are painting regularly. And there is a very interesting painting time pass exercise I do, which is also called the palette cleanser. So make different patterns with the palette colors you have to clean it out instead of taking a rag and wiping it. So next month when I do the watercolor basics with you guys for this batch, I'm going to show you all of these techniques. Okay, so now the bus has been prepped, so to say, and the phone booth is above the bus. If these colors are dry, let's start painting from the top and then bring the colors down. Since we have created so many things in pen directly, just paint over the whole design except that frame around the word telephone. We will change the flatness of this color eventually. Oops, okay. Wait, if you've not painted the whole thing, just hang on. We have to do the same great treatment for these windows. I almost forgot. I hope you all have not sped ahead. Okay, so the same thing over here, just halfway. And each of these windows can look different because each of them is effectively reflecting a different part of the scenery and a different part of the light is falling on them. Okay, thank goodness I got that in time. And then when you're painting, aim to stain. Don't press too hard on the brush. Very gently encourage the paint to move forward. So your movement should not be back and forth as much as just forward and then sideways and then forward, move to the side, move forward, side, move forward, like that. So this painting is not like painting walls back and forth. The more you do a back and forth painting, the duller your paint becomes. It's like trying to comb your hair with your brush, moving from the front of your head to the back and then from the back of your head to the front again. That does not smooth out your hair. That's exactly how color pigments feel when we go back and forth with watercolor. So moving forward, moving forward. So in this technique, I find that watercolor is the most unique of all mediums, and it's so misunderstood. Everyone feels what will happen if I make a mistake in watercolor, and it's the hardest medium and all. I really feel sometimes this is just rumor spread by the oil paint lobby. Watercolor behaves very differently. Watercolor and paper are literally born from the same lineage because paper is made in water with water. So when it is hydrated, as is the requirement of watercolor, it's bound to find like a natural friendship with the medium. So if we think of any other medium like pastels or color pencils or crayons, they are not really bonding. The color does not embed itself in the fiber. It sits on the surface. Likewise is the case with acrylic colors, oil paints. That's why you really have to dig in and encourage that color to stay stuck on the surface. But with watercolor, they're just so happy to meet. You don't have to do too much to push them into each other's arms. So when you are painting, see to it that your brush is literally just gliding on the surface, and as soon as that paint pigment sits down, move forward. If you feel your painting is becoming patchy, it's probably because you're overworking it. If after you have painted it, it still looks patchy, you've not overworked it, still let it completely dry. After watercolor dries, it becomes at least 30 to 40% lighter than when it is wet. After it becomes lighter, that problem, which seemed like such a big problem before, might even vanish. Also, while it is drying, pigments go and merge with other pigments which are still wet. So, what looks like a big stain or uh, I guess, unevenness in the painting, that can even out as the paint dries also. Now, while the phone booth is drying, let's look at the bus. The bus needs to look like a bus, so we're going to have to put in a few highlights in a few places. So these highlights are going to be on the front, top front. So literally, we're going to treat the bus like we would treat a shiny fruit. So one big highlight over here on its temple, and one on this corner, the front corner. And the rest of it we would just paint flat, the same color. So I'm literally making a circle around this highlight. It'll look very unnatural. It'll look some almost like the highlight on a tomato. And you'll wonder what is up with this. But once the whole painting finishes, you can then decide whether it's looking too odd. At every point, please keep checking with the reference image. If you have to paint there, there is a white stripe running between the two halves of the bus. Whereas that big panel on which I presume a big ad were to come, that is blank. Then there is a sign on which they would write the name of the bus, its destination. So I have left that white, but the sign is actually a black sign with white letters. We can do that later. Oh, here there's just a grill. Okay, I'll paint that. Okay, there's one more highlight over here um, on the oh my god, I don't know why I can't remember these words. It's the opposite of the trunk of a car. The bonnet, sorry. Oof. There is a metallic part which I have forgotten, but I salvaged it a little bit towards the foreground. Don't paint the wheels in red. One more highlight. Are you able to see those highlights on the bus? At any point, if you feel that the area that you need to paint is more than your little brush can handle, please feel free to change the brush. So at this point, I'm generally comfortable with most brushes to do different kinds of painting. So I tend to forget to tell you to change the brush. Okay, this is already looking very nice. Red, red, red. Okay, I'm gonna take a little break, give you guys a couple of minutes to finish yours. If anyone can just give me a thumbs up when you're done with this, then I'll know to proceed. Okay, shall we move? Um, all right. Okay, now I'm going to add a few dark parts over here. So there is a section inside these two windows and this part that is a little darker. So all we do is increase the darkness of this scarlet with a little bit of burnt umber to begin with. So this will just make a deeper, the red a little deeper, and apply that on the inside of this part of the bus. So this section is actually a little recess in the bus. And right now it looks like the front of the bus has got three windows, which looks really, really odd. So I have inserted that color here. And also there's a little bit of dark part inside this window on the side. So there I'm adding a brown colored line. This is burnt umber. And there can be a number of colors that we can add underneath that, which are all some kind of a deep shade. So I have another part, just a little bit of that blue gray color, just the silhouette of the driver sitting there, and maybe some bars. The same deep color goes around the window of the driver as well. So we just have to make splashes of color. Take a little bit of cobalt blue and black mix, which you should have along with your gray color. So just a little bit of cobalt blue and black or gray, this kind of bluish gray shade. And let's make a few marks here, some vertical lines. And a little bit of the burnt umber on the left here. And then, for those of you who are nerds like me, you can make a crazy number 9 here. So I'm making the frame, a black frame for the bus number, and making the outline of the 9 like this, like a spiral going outward, and then just a hole in the middle. That's your number 9. And then when we want to write the text, obviously we can't write all of that. So all you need to do is in the space that the text is occupying, you will make horizontal lines in the same alignment. So if it's center aligned, you will make it that way. If it is left aligned, you will make it that way, occupying about the same amount of space. And that's it. Whatever it's supposed to indicate, it will indicate.
There's a 9 above the window.
Above the door,
No, window.
this
Just
window.
yeah,
Yeah. Draw it. We'll have to reduce the window size, but first
yeah,
make
yeah.
it
I think
a
that
smaller
one is
window.
a more red paint than.
Yeah. No, do it now. And it's the same thing. You can make it the same way. But see how many things we noticed now about these. Uh, I mean, we wouldn't have even noticed all these marks. Okay, now this lettering slightly bigger. So when you have slightly bigger lettering to contend with, you can try to make just the outline shape. So I'm making Trafalgar. So just a little of the, and that I do this only because I just have this challenge mentality. Let me see how much I can make my life more challenging. Like I have nothing more challenging happening.
I think I shall have to depart. People around me are starting to clear me also.
Sorry, what?
I think I shall have to leave before people clear me as they're clearing the room.
Clear the room.
Yeah, that
Okay.
room. Yeah.
Okay. Now this window over here we can reduce, and there is a rear view mirror for the bus driver over there. Which if you can incorporate, that's great. If you can't, it's again not a big deal. The number 9 comes somewhere here, as Ashwita noticed. So I've just made this indent space over here for the rear view mirror, which can come like that. I know this is too much of a detail. I'm not expecting you to draw this, but if you see it and you can make it, this is how you can make it. Now basically we will add more burnt umber and this time even cobalt blue to scarlet to make it deeper. I don't like to add black to deepen colors. I prefer to add all the other colors first and then the last resort will be adding black. So this is a deeper shadowy red, deeper than even the first one, and we will use that to just make a few marks here and there to add dimension, like somewhere near the highlights will also be a shadow, like near the fenders there is this whole grill here which will be slightly dark. And then some places like just under some windows, these edges. It's not too much, but it instantly makes the a 3D illusion available for us. Now for the wheels, we just have one tiny gray donut in the center, and the rest is all just black. So here we can go to this black shade that we had made for the gray. That's black, ultramarine, no, cobalt blue, and or just plain black also is fine. And now let's make the wheels. So everything underneath the bus is basically a black shade. And this too, if you want to show it more dimensional, there are certain sections where you can make the a lighter mark just at the bottom edge, no, the top edge of the bottom of the tire, the inside of the mud guard. And keep an eye on the black as well, because it can this will also become a little lighter and look like it's gray. So in that case, you can make a second layer of this also. Okay, I'm quite happy with how this has turned out. And we can use the same deep red color for the phone booth, like in these sections. Now be very careful that you don't put your hand over the wet paint. But these sections, literally anywhere near the lines that you've made, just make a second line with paint. That's the 3D-ness you need. This is where it helps to spend more time on drawing, because then the paint is just like the perfect embellishment. And even if you fudge the lines a little, the paint is not really that much of a problem. And let all those weird patches of paint remain. Don't try to even them out. Okay, so now let's try doing some lettering, and then we will connect all of this. We'll make a little bit of a shadow here, we'll make some sky. Maybe we can make some Union Jacks in the sky. So let's write the word London here, spilling onto the other page, onto this page like that, just a little bit. And being as formal as London is, we will make it, should we make it a fun style or a formal style? What is your choice? Any preferences? No preferences? Okay. Right, so let me show you how to make a serif font. Serif are the extra parts that you put on top of certain letters, and they make fonts look rather stuffy, but we can change that by changing certain proportions. So, whatever you need to write, first give yourself space for the letters. And if you have linear, a possibility for linear expansion, you can start making space from the left. Like over here, we have a little extra space in case we want to make the letters bigger. So, you can start from the left and make small blocks, LONDON. But this means you leave certain room for, I guess, the unpredictable. But let's say I want to make the letters all the way till the blue part. This is the section that I choose. I want the letters, they must come till here. N must end on the blue part. Then in that case, we do the same thing as we have done for the windows. Divide the space into two parts first. So you have equal space on the right and left. You know that you want your letters in the space over here. And then divide each section into 3 more sections. And each of those lines that you make to divide the sections, give a little bit of a gap in that space. So I'm giving a gap of maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. It doesn't matter whether it's 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters as long as it's even throughout. And then within that space, you will write the words, not touching the edges of that square or rectangle you've made, but just a little inside, so that you get even spacing between the letters. Just an LON. Thankfully, we just need to know how to write 4 letters because 2 of the letters are repeating. Okay, before we do any inking, just look at how your letters are looking. I am thinking that we could make a wonderful Union Jack somewhere like this, running through the words. So this becomes rather busy. And in any case, the letters are going to be above the Union Jack, so we don't have to worry about drawing that first. Okay, now this is how serif letters can be drawn. So each of these letters, all the vertical sections that we have, make them a certain amount of thick. So here we are going to do the same thing for N, although this is just a design, I guess, requirement. I'll explain that later. Normally on the N, you don't have those sections thick, but we are going to make it thick anyway. The verticals are all thick. And then on the oval parts, which is this one single part for D, you will just draw a line that is vertical again like that, so that the thickest part of the oval is as thick as the thickness of the vertical letters. So I will draw a straight line coming down on the left and on the right. Hopefully it's even left and right, and only the thickest part must be as much as the thickest part of your the vertical parts of your letters. Alright, now apart from the O's, all the other letters we will have a serif, and that comes like this. A serif is just an extension to the letter, top of the L, top of the N on both ends and a little extension on the D towards the left. This is only the tops. On the bottom, a little on the left for the L, the same distance as the top. And where the L ends on the right hand side, we will draw a wedge which goes straight up and then curves like that. On the bottom of the N, only in the front, don't make it in the back. I'm going to show you a different end for the back. For the D again, a little extension to the left, the same amount as you've done on the top. And again on the front of the N, not on the back. So this is the way you can tell whether the N, if you see it on a tile, whether it is upright or upside down. Now using your pen, we will go around these lines and hope that our thicknesses are more or less equal. Let me just make a few and I'll show you. And when we come from the sides, you curve the sides inward like that. Can I just show you this? Don't make it with me so that you can see how the finished serif can look. You always turn in a rounded form, go around. This is how you get a good serif letter. We will round off all the corners. Now even for the O, you will make the outside of the O as we have drawn in pencil. But the inside of the O, when you round off the corners, this is what you get. Okay? And every time you make these letters, just pay attention to how much space you are leaving between the letters. I might have made it a little complicated for all of you, or you are probably now realizing that lettering is fairly complicated. We see these letters every day and we don't really think about how complex these letters are, except when we start drawing them. If your letters are not even, if they're jumping up and down on a line, if the spacing is uneven, that is okay, because after all, it must look like it is human made. In a day and age where everything is becoming so perfect, these little anomalies are what make the illustration even more endearing. So the N has to come down to a point in the back. And if it is not coming to a point, just make a horizontal line to end it like this without a serif on that side. So that's our London. Get rid of all the pencil marks. Now if you want to write text, I've written a little bit of text over here, which is just a simple block of text for the Tudor rose. But if you want to write text over here, you could consider maybe writing it in this lovely section that we have over here. So make yourself a nice text block which is not too close to the outer edge. In this case now, our page is going to be, this is like the folded page of a diary. So don't make lettering that's too close to the inner edge or the outer edge. We have framed the page so well that you can make some lovely text in this section. Leave a little gap from all the elements around so that it looks like there is a text, what's called a text wrap. You can make your little English flag over here. This will fit well. So it's a little complicated than just this. So you'll have to do some referencing. And a few things you can add to this, like in the case of the bus, we can add a little bit of a shadow underneath the bus because this is looking too static. So I just want you to see this. Don't make it with me, just observe this. At the bottom of the bus, without really encroaching into the painted areas too much, I'm using a cerulean blue to make a small shadow, which I will pull out like that by pressing the brush. So this blue will tie in with this blue and our page starts making more sense. Then if you feel like it, you could also consider redrawing parts of these elements in color. The food that we had done in the second part, you can make these and make them on loose sheets, cut them up and put them all over like that. And I think that should be it. So now I just one little part I wanted to show you is these highlights. I do feel that they can become a little softer. So this is how you do it. I'm taking a damp brush. It's not too wet. And I will just run it along the edge of this highlight. And every time I pick up some paint, because I'm wetting in that edge, I'll wipe that and do this again. You have to do this very carefully, and also it's not necessary, but if you feel like it, this is how you can make edges look less sharp. Edges of paint. So long as you're not disturbing too much of the area where the edge is being fuzzed out, that's how you can make it. Right, now to make this London stand out, you could just paint the London itself, or you can do a similar shadow underneath London like I have made on the temples of India. So just a little cerulean blue on the left and bottom of the letters should do it. But this paint, if you're painting the words themselves, then avoid painting them in red. Make them in blue, or even a green is fine, but not a red. Okay, so I guess that's it.